This is the South China Sea, a region currently experiencing intense geopolitical tension. The main reason for this tension is that China is attempting to bring the entire area under its control. The South China Sea spans approximately 35,000 kilometers, stretching from Singapore to the Taiwan Strait. Because of its size and strategic importance, several countries, including Malaysia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Brunei, Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan, are deeply concerned about China's expanding influence. Around 80% of all sea trade in the Pacific Ocean passes through this vital region. In recent years, China has been aggressively building military bases throughout the South China Sea in an effort to strengthen its control. In response, the United States has established a network of military bases surrounding China. This military build-up on both sides has greatly increased geopolitical tensions in the region. Many analysts now warn that if a global conflict like World War III were to break out, it could very well begin in the South China Sea. In today's video, we will try to understand why the South China Sea is so important for the world. Similarly, we'll try to understand from China's perspective as well, why exactly does it want to control this entire area? And in the end, we'll see what the outcome of all this could be. So let's head towards the world's most contested sea, the South China Sea. 30% of the world's sea trade passes through the South China Sea. Each year, around 11 billion barrels of oil and 190 trillion cubic feet of natural gas move through this region to reach Southeast Asian countries. The South China Sea connects the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean, which is why it is such a critical trade route. Whoever controls this region holds influence over nearly a third of global trade. At present, 5 countries are staking claims to different parts of the South China Sea. These claims are based on the United Nations Law of the Sea, which defines an exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, as the area extending up to 200 miles from a country's coastline. A country has rights to the natural resources and trade within its exclusive economic zone. For instance, if oil is found within 200 miles of Vietnam's coast, then Vietnam has full rights over it. Similarly, any part of the sea that does not fall under any country's exclusive economic zone is considered part of the international water domain, meaning all nations have equal rights to it under international maritime law. All of the countries in this region are making claims based on the EEZ law, all except China. China claims that it has historical ownership of almost the entire South China Sea. After Japan lost World War II, China took the opportunity to draw what is now known as the 9-dash line, declaring roughly 90% of the South China Sea as Chinese territory. Before that, this area had been under Japanese control. In 1973, when the United Nations established the EEZ law, China refused to accept it. Instead, it continued to insist that it had rights over the entire sea as defined by the 9-dash line. At the heart of the South China Sea are the Spratly Islands. Although these islands are largely uninhabited, China, Vietnam, the Philippines and Malaysia all claim ownership of them. The reason is simple: controlling these islands means extending one's exclusive economic zone. That is why China is building military bases on these islands. This is where the United States comes into the picture. The US has no territorial claim in the South China Sea, but as the world's leading superpower and a rival to China, it is determined to limit China's growing military presence. As a result, America is constructing a network of military bases around China. This strategic belt of US bases begins in Okinawa, Japan, which hosts 32 American military facilities. The US also maintains bases on Japan's Miyako and Yonaguni Islands, with about 30,000 American troops stationed in Japan altogether. The next location is Taiwan, where approximately 200 American soldiers are currently deployed. Back in 1958, there were nearly 20,000 US troops in Taiwan, and America had even installed nuclear weapons there. However, in the 1970s, the US withdrew both its troops and nuclear weapons from Taiwan due to rising tensions with China, since the distance between Taiwan and the Chinese mainland is just 100 miles. This situation was beginning to edge toward direct conflict. After Taiwan, the next strategic location is the Philippines. On Palawan Island, there is a US air base with 2,000 troops, while Luzon Island hosts Clark Air Base with another 1,000. In Sulu, the US has stationed around 500 soldiers and deployed an anti-aircraft system to monitor Chinese naval activity. The US presence also extends to Vietnam. At the Da Nang Air Base, there are about 500 American soldiers. There is also a military agreement in place between the US and Vietnam that allows the American Air Force to use Vietnamese airports in case of war. But the US is not alone in its efforts to contain China. Australia plays a crucial role in this strategy as well. A trilateral military alliance between the United States, States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, known as AUKUS, has been formed to strengthen surveillance in the Pacific Ocean. Under this alliance, the three countries are jointly developing a submarine force. The US and UK have already constructed a submarine base at Perth Port in Australia. From China's point of view, America's strategy appears highly aggressive. China relies heavily on sea trade, which flows through its 14,000-kilometre-long eastern coastline. These trade routes are now surrounded by American military bases. To reach South Asia, the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, China's ships must pass through three straits: the Strait of Malacca between Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, the Sunda Strait between Java and Sumatra, and the Lombok Strait between two Indonesian islands. All three of these straits are located in countries allied with the United States. This means the US has the power to choke China's supply routes if it chooses to do so, a move that could collapse China's economy within weeks. That's why China is now aggressively trying to gain control over the South China Sea. Today, China possesses the second largest navy in the world. In 2022, the US spent $877 billion on its military, while China spent about $300 billion. This is a huge leap from 1990, when China's military spending was just $9 billion. Through its expanding navy, China hopes to secure its trade routes and protect them from any possible blockade. China's economy is already growing rapidly. If we look at the data, it becomes clear that China is on track to surpass the US and become the world's largest economy. For the past 80 years, America has maintained its dominance over global affairs. But as history shows, every empire eventually reaches its peak and begins to decline, only to be replaced by a new one. Today, it seems that China may be the one poised to take America's place. The United States, however, will not give up its position easily. It will use every tool available, including trade blockades and military pressure, to slow down China's rise. But at the same time, China continues to gain power and influence. Its alliance with Russia has further strengthened its geopolitical standing, making the global power struggle even more intense. This race to become the next global superpower is pushing the world dangerously close to a major conflict. For the past 18 months, our videos have been tracking this growing geopolitical tension, and with every passing moment, the world edges closer to a large-scale war. Let's hope that sanity prevails, and global leaders find a way to avoid disaster. These are all the sources we consulted for this video. If you want to watch more geopolitical videos like this, then please let us know in the comments below. Your comments are what let us know your feedback. We'll see you in the next video with another interesting topic.